Okay, awesome. Welcome everybody to another week of the community calls for the Research Hub. So we've got a few topics today. We'll probably get started with Kobe, who is going to try to garner a bunch of feedback on some specific topics regarding the kind of the new future direction and layout and UI UX of the platform. So Kobe, you want to go for it?
Just
Yeah,
might link to that document again.
yeah, definitely. I'll share a link with you guys. Yes. So, and I think what we're gonna do is next week. I'm away right now, but next week I'll be fully back. And what I want to do is I want to share with you the document, and I will also be able to share some screenshots of the newly designed product that of what Research Hub will look like. I want to share that with you and collect some feedback. But until then, a little bit of an update. So we're basically, I consider like Research Hub up until this point, or at least that's my own personal consideration. I consider it to be an experiment. So we have tried a lot of different things. We tried this and that, and we kind of know what works and what doesn't work. We know we have a good idea of what direction we should go after, and not to say that we will be entirely right, but at this point in time we know that funding is something we want to go after. We want to go after more notebook features, integrate the notebook more like seamlessly into the app, improve the reputation system, improve the homepage, make the app like much simpler and more polished, make the give people like a better understanding of what Research Coin is all about and what Research Hub can do at a glance when they come to the homepage. So we know a bunch of things, right? And until we get there, so next week I'll share some stuff with you. So there is like a couple of questions. I just wanted to collect some feedback. If you have some feedback, great. And if you don't, that's okay too. You can look at the document that Jeff shared, and maybe you can add some comments in there. So the first topic I wanted to collect feedback on is particularly with the homepage. So the homepage right now, when you go to Research Hub, there's like a couple things going on with the homepage. First of all, the homepage is not really personalized for a person. There is no like preferences based on your reading history or based on like the things you care about. Like we don't show you content based on that, and that's got its pros and cons. There is like some pros and cons here. So that's one thing that we're going to address. But I guess my question is to you is, in an ideal world, what type of content would you like to see on the homepage? And I can give you more guidance into what I mean by that. But before I do that, I don't want to like, I guess, constrain the feedback here. So just like, there is no right or wrong answer. Just like what in your field, or like for in your preference, in your opinion, what would you like to see in the homepage?
I can start. Personally, I'd like to see um, like a nice, easy way to filter through whatever open bounties exist. Where if I'm like, a lot of my job is like there's 5 or 10 minute incubations, and so if I can just hop into Research Hub in between my like during my incubations, filter through the Neuroscience Hub, look at all open bounties. If I can take 5 or 10 minutes to answer somebody's question, it would really like optimize and kind of make everybody's life efficient. The person gets their answer. I use up my 5 or 10 minutes to earn some research coin. So I think like an easy way to filter and make the bounties discoverable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now it's like literally impossible to see them in the homepage. So no doubt. Edwin, I think you're on mute, by the way.
Sorry. I think the default papers that are displayed should be based on the hubs that you're interested in, and then you can default to like, everything else that everybody on the site is interested in. Because I'd imagine that as we grow, especially, it won't make sense for people to have just like whatever, like the whole range of academic interests and just like whatever papers are popular. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. The one thing here that Satvik made a good point in the document we're discussing. There is the one criticism to that, and there is no, I guess there is no like perfect solution here. But like one of the things one of the things that you said that made good sense is that in order to personalize content, we need to track your certain types of data. So like like you're going to give us some hub data, and then we keep track of that, and we can personalize based on that. Then of course, as the algorithms become more advanced, and maybe we start to monitor your reading behavior, and I hate the word monitor because it sounds like we're kind of like watching you, but if we wanted to go down that route, it does go against the Web3, like I guess, notion of anti-tracking, etc. So it's something to consider here. But I agree that at the very least, we should take into account the data that you want to give us, which is the hub data. Like I'm interested in this, and we should show you that content.
Yeah, maybe it's just not a problem worth addressing now.
Yeah, I agree. It will definitely become like a problem in the future, but until then, it's definitely something we can do something about. Okay, so anything else? I'm just curious, like, what about the type of content? So like personalized content, but like, I guess just the type of content that we should consider is also important. Do you want to see more social behavior content? And I'm not like, no, just like it could be like you can see like some tier 1 content, which we consider as like published content, like papers and stuff like that. Or it could be like more social content, like for example, like Jeff has supported this paper with 500 RC. Is that something you're interested in seeing?
Personally, a big fan of reaction to content and visibility of such. For example, if there is a trending paper, and this paper can be trending based on the internal metrics, right? So people interacting with it, or external, like alt metric type thing. But then it would be cool to see not just the paper card, but also the snippets of profound interactions with it. For example, if there is a trending comment that everyone responds to, maybe we can show a preview of that comment underneath a paper, or just the first few lines and the see more button or something. And if there is if someone supported with RSC, that can also be added somewhere on the paper card, so we can see that people are excited about this paper.
Yeah, that sounds, yeah, for sure, like something we're thinking about. We're kind of like at a crossroad right now of like how much of these interactions do we want to show you? What's the fine balance between showing you like nice tier 1 content versus like social content? Like, because obviously if you show a bit too much social content, then maybe that becomes a bit more like a Twitter, and it loses the I guess the gravity of the science at a glance, at least. But I agree, Anton, that there is like maybe like a good balance here.
I think personally, the one thing that I worry about with like getting little snippets of like the threads through the discussions is sometimes there's not a lot of context. say like there's like a comment that gets like a lot of kind of activity and it shows up on the news feed, but it's just like a kind of snippet of an entire grander thread. You might not have enough context to understand where that thread plugged into everything else, and maybe it's you kind of will just browse and go by it because you don't have the full picture there. So that's one thing that I worry about, especially with something that's like maybe more like scientifically demanding, where you need to have all that context to really make sense of it. And yeah, and I talked with Kobe a bit too on the Slack, but yeah, I think like the tier 1 content definitely highlight, and then maybe like use a notification system, or maybe just slightly sprinkle in some kind of tier 2 content. But I think it would really like muffle a lot of the tier 1 content if we threw in everything that's like this person liked this or upvoted and supported this. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, the best. Well, I guess I'll tell you what the best idea I came up with so far. But before I do that, I don't want to, I guess, hinder any other ideas, because once I say what I'm going to say, it's going to affect how you're thinking, whatever feedback you're going to give. So, anything else? I'm really curious about like the type of content that you want to see. And like it doesn't have to be papers, it can be like other things too. Like, do we think is it worth showing experiments, like I don't know, like
How would we
some
display
studies?
experiments? I'm not even.
Yeah, I guess like I'm not entirely sure. That's something I would need your help with, because it could be like right now we kind of consider most of the tier 1 content is like papers. So it could be that maybe experiment is not the right way to say it, but maybe like it's like a type of paper, maybe, or like maybe like a study, or an RCT or something like that, where it's a paper that takes into account there is like an experiment within obviously the paper, but it's not so much as an experiment as a standalone thingy.
Do you mean papers produced in the house in ResearchHub, published there?
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, that is also a problem separately. I guess there is like papers that are external, and there is papers that are produced in ResearchHub, and right now we don't have too many of those. But we should distinguish, like, okay, let's say you do write a paper in ResearchHub. I think what I would like to do is to have some kind of a tagging system where maybe you create a paper. There is the first thing you see when you like open the notebook is you're creating a note, and then you have a bunch of template options to choose from. One of them is just a scientific paper, in which case we like insert like the basic structure of a paper, like abstract, conclusion, methods and materials and all that. And there is like other stuff as well, like for example, like a protocol someone mentioned, like in the lab, I guess, like where you follow like particular procedures. I don't have a lot of insight into that, but that can be another template. And then we denote them in the homepage. There could be like something you see in the homepage, if that's the type of content you're interested in and you think is worth showcasing.
See, I think that would be more useful, but I'm not convinced that would increase engagement. So it depends on what our goal is, I suppose. And what is your goal in redoing the homepage?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So my goal, and I think the organization's goal, is a few things. So the first thing is to address like a fragmented product. Like we have a bunch of features that are not coming together cohesively, like the notebook and and the feed and the leaderboard, they feel very segmented and they don't adhere well. And second problem is that we don't
Well, how
have
did you guys come to that conclusion, though? That's just like what is there a reason that you've decided it's fragmented, or is it the lack of engagement, or is
yeah,
it
it's
just like
based
intuition?
yeah, so a lot of it, because we don't have a lot of users at this point, a lot of the product decisions up until now, they're going to be intuition based. But the intuition is good. Like, it's not just intuition based, it's so there is some database. It's also based on data, because like we see like how many people are creating notes and how many of those notes that are being created are being published. Very few. And we also get a lot of problems, like questions like, oh, how do I publish? What does it mean to publish? What does the ELN mean? All kinds of questions like that really make me feel like something is off. What does it mean to upload a paper? Do I need to upload my own paper? What does that mean? So a lot of people are confused about um, what are the actions that you can take on ResearchHub. What is ResearchCoin? How can I earn it? Like, what
Well, couldn't we
actions do
just
I need?
have like a explainer video? I mean, it seems like we could just teach them how to use the site if that's the issue. I mean, to me, it would make more sense to teach people how to use the site than redo the entire thing under the assumption that it's fragmented. Like, it would make more sense to just try to teach people, and then if that was still a problem, then you could, you know, come
I would also
come to
agree
that
that
conclusion.
I would second that overhauling our like UI for like our website might not be the best use of like time with everything else we have going on, but maybe other people agree or disagree.
Yeah, I think maybe, I'm not like, I think for the sake of time, I'm not really going into too much detail about like the issues. So if you look at the document that I shared, you'll see that when I say things like the product is fragmented, etc., it's not. Some of it is intuition based, some of that is based on data. Some of it, there is a lot, and also it's not just, these are not the entirety of the issues. There is a lot more to it. So you can read through the product. And there is also the other notion of like, there is a ton of features we want to be building, but if you really think about from a building, integrating like new features into the ResearchHub ecosystem, they don't really mash in too well. Like, for example, like if you wanted to do simple things like feature content in the homepage and stuff like that, it poses quite a difficulty with the current UI system. So it becomes like a problem from many different perspectives. And I think it'll be really great if you guys can take a look at the document I shared and maybe you add your comments, and we can continue this dialogue in Notion.
Okay.
But
Hi,
there's
can I-
one other thing I wanted to actually add here. So my personal belief is that, like, let's say a video can only do so much. Like, if your product doesn't convey value at a glance, then you have a problem. And that's based on like my own like personal experience working on different products. Like, if you have to produce a video in order to convey what your product does, then maybe you should be looking at your product a bit more thoroughly. Maybe the video, like, I also question whether people are actually going to watch videos and really try to understand them. It seems simple, right? Like, who is not going to watch like a 1-minute video? But to me, it's a symptom of something that's like a bit more problematic.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Kobe. I mean, part of the problem is just like, because of the type of product you're trying to build, there are going to be a ton of different features.
Mhm.
And it's also not clear what the best way into all of that is. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right. There is no easy path here. It's kind of like, here is the thing. We have like, if you look at a document, you'll see that it's divided into about 20 different categories. So these are 20 or more different things that we want to build. And right now, when you look at them holistically from a product perspective, and you try to isolate them, so like let's say we wanted to improve the reputation system, etc., you can build them right now into the product. You can mash them in, you can make it work. But if you're really thinking about the long term, which we're trying to think about how do we integrate, how do we solve like these like 20 or so different problems into ResearchHub. And it's not going to be something we are able to do right now. It's going to take us a while. How do we get there? And the answer is that the product needs to be a little bit different. So I know that maybe when we talk about UI, etc., like the idea, the first feeling that comes up is why something needs to be prettier in order to be functional. But I guess the differentiation here is that there is the user experience, which is different than the user interface. So what we're trying to solve here is for like a user experience that addresses all the different things that we want to build. And that may be like seems like a little bit like an overkill, but that's why I like invite you guys to take a look at the document, and maybe hopefully you'll see things a little different.
Hi, Kobe, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nathan, yes, please go ahead.
Sorry, I was just reading through the whole document. It's the first time I've seen it. And my first thoughts are that I completely agree with you. I completely agree that the product is fragmented and not cohesive. I agree that there's some like serious UI issues at the moment. And by that, I want to like clarify what I mean by that. The UI at the moment is perfectly explanatory for a product that is essentially research. Crypto does ResearchGate. In other words, it is an open access paper upload site which has some interesting crypto incentives aligned. And if that was the product, the UI does make sense. And we just need to, but it doesn't make sense to then add in all the other features that are in different tabs that make it messy, if that makes sense. Now, my understanding of what you guys have been doing over the last few months is essentially trialing a bunch of different products and seeing, okay, where might we get product market fit? Where might we get traction? If we, try this knowledge as a service thing, do we get traction with that? If we try, peer reviews, do we get traction with that? And I understand it, but I completely agree that the UI needs to be in line with the actual product that's set by the team and the core team, and the vision that's set by the core team. And I understand why some of the, us, old users don't see that, because we've been there since it was mainly a ResearchGate, the crypto as ResearchGate type thing. I mean, my thoughts on what are important, I think it's kind of a founder-led decision, really, in terms of like what is the core vision of the product. But my opinion is that ResearchHub lives or dies on ResearchCoin, because that is the unfair advantage of the founders. I understand any other site could make a competitor to the existing, academic institutions. But if we're going to do it crypto, we have to emphasize the crypto. And at the moment, I don't see any. Whenever I explain the product, I'm not able to clearly demonstrate the value that's added by ResearchCoin on top of the features of the site, if that makes sense, other than something vague about a governance tool.
Yeah, and we want people to. Thanks, Nathan, for saying it. And I think um, yeah, what sparked this whole like need to even create this document is growing frustration for myself. And the frustration comes from a good place. Like I get frustrated when I care. Like I work as part of this team, and I want ResearchHub to live up to its full potential. And it's I felt compelled to start this document, and then a lot of the feedback is based. It's not my own personal opinion. It's based on a lot of the conversation I've had with a bunch of you. So I think that when it comes to Research Coin, I want to address that point. Yes, I do agree that Research Coin is the unique advantage that we have, and right now. When you come to the site, we don't really highlight that. You don't know how to earn. And so if we want to make Research Coin a thing, what I'm trying to say is that let's give it the focus it needs. And to piggyback off of what Jeff said, when you come to the homepage, maybe you should see some bounties. Maybe you should see some ways to earn. Maybe if you're like in a particular field, like if you're I don't know, in like computer science, and maybe we should notify you when a new paper is uploaded that you could be earning some research coin by peer reviewing this paper. So there is like a bunch of ideas that we have that hopefully this document will address, and then subsequently like some mocks. Okay, please, by the way, so I know we're talking about the homepage, but it's kind of tricky because it's not really just the homepage. This is a overall ResearchHub plus plus, I suppose is the right way to say it. It's like a new version of ResearchHub that's not going to be like we're overhauling the whole system like right now. This is like a roadmap to achieve certain like milestones. And this is the beginning of the discussion of how we can hit these milestones. The homepage is just like a symptom of like the underlying like thing we're actually trying to do. So Edwin, please go ahead.
So I'll put this in the document, but I just had an idea that I wanted to talk there. So if you go to the homepage right now, you see the publish, leaderboard, etc. The papers, everything. And it's kind of interesting because it's like a lot of other social media, which kind of is so. For example, the homepage on Facebook assumes that you're on Facebook to interact with content. So in a similar way, because you get the scroll, right? So it's like the first thing when I go to Facebook, before engaging with like the groups or going and looking at my own page or doing whatever, all the different options that there are, I just scroll because, they're kind of sort of nudging you towards that. But with ResearchHub, it seems to me that if you're talking about having 20 different things, people are going to want to use ResearchHub for different reasons depending on what they're doing. So for some people, bounties are going to be more important. For others, just like keeping up with what's going on is going to be more important. So it might actually make sense to have like a simpler homepage where there, like something very simple that just lists like the different ways, not even lists, but just gives you like links to the different ways in which you could engage with the site. I'm imagining like something very like bare bones, just elegant, where you can decide to go to the page and interact with the papers that are being, or go to the hubs, or go and see the bounties. But literally something very simple where you're not sort of just thrust into dealing or into interacting with all the papers that are posted. Because like you said, if I'm looking at this right now, I go to ResearchHub, I'm thinking this is basically like an open access journal that has additional features. But if it's like, just like a clear page with the different ways in which you could interact with the site, that might make it smoother.
Yeah, the solution here is that, well, I don't know what the right solution is, but I know that it must be simpler. Right now, it's very
Mhm.
overwhelming. And some of you have talked to me, and like my personal opinion about like in general when you design a product is that emotion plays like a huge role. If someone, it doesn't matter, even if you have good value, but the emotion that you make people feel when you go to a shitty site is like one of frustration or overwhelming certain type of feeling, they're not going to come back to the site. That might be like a bit of a extreme like point of view, but that's how I feel. And right now, when I go to ResearchHub, I try to focus on how I feel. I feel a little bit overwhelmed. That's not the type of feeling we want to cultivate. So simplicity is a step in the right direction here. Satvik or Nathan, maybe Satvik, you go next because Nathan went last time.
So my point is just in continuation with what Edwin said. I think what Edwin said could be used very well in implementing the personalization of the homepage that we're thinking of, right? And the way to go about it could be that we provide a few onboarding questions. So, for example, the way Reddit does, and maybe we can ask people if they are here to earn some RSC or if they're here to explore what's happening in science. Maybe that could be a question that we ask, and then this sets up sort of a default state for that user, and then that default state gets more and more permanent based on their activity on the website. So if they're constantly engaging with bounty questions, we realize that this user is deeply interested in this, and then the homepage becomes more and more geared towards bounty questions. That could be a way of going about it without, because I don't think we should. I think what Edwin was suggesting was that every time you open ResearchHub, you get, I think, 4 different buttons that you want to earn bounties or do you want to explore science or something like that. I don't think that could be, like, adding an additional step before getting to the meat should not be something that we consider, but this could be a way of sort of implementing personalization without a lot of invasive tracking, and also providing what's valuable to the user directly.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points, especially about the onboarding and really trying to understand what the user is after when they come to ResearchHub. Yeah, like, okay, that's great stuff. Nathan, I guess, Jeff, do we have time? Do you have, I know you want to go over some other stuff.
No, I think this is going to be like the lion's share of the commentary was going to be on this. I think it's a very important topic. Also, after Nathan, I think I want to also give time for, I think, Tyler to just jump in and give us his opinion, as he is kind of a set of fresh eyes. So yeah, after Nathan, Tyler, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I just wanted to contrast it with, one of the, more successful DeSci projects in the space, so VitaDAO. So is it all right if I very quickly share my screen, Jeffrey? Is that all right?
Yep. You have access to it?
Yeah, I think so. Hang on. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think so if we contrast ResearchHub to VitaDAO here, I feel like what they get right is that they are giving us the value proposition in a very clear message straight away. So they've got a very specific goal and they've got a clear mission on the front. And then they're selling us, the value proposition of Vita token over just using your dollars for funding longevity research, because there's plenty of projects that look at, fundraising, essentially like a sort of crowdsourcing of fundraising of research. But we need to talk about what the crypto token value proposition is. And then it's just a sort of banner of the amount of wins that they've had so far and why other people are getting on board, giving you that sense of FOMO that you need to be on board on this train because it's going towards DeSci, etc. That's the sort of thing where, you know, we could have, you know, this number of bounties have been completed, this number of peer reviews have been completed, this is what ResearchCoin is, this is what we're doing, this is our mission, democratizing and, you know, enhancing the pace, accelerating the pace of science. I think that would be a clearer proposition than what we've got at the moment, which is, I mean, it's good, but I think it's on a different path than I think the team are looking at the moment.
So
Yeah,
can
no,
I know, can I just jump in 1 second, Nathan? It seems though that we don't have like we haven't come to an agreement about what we want ResearchCoin to be, right? So I mean, from all the messaging I've gotten from the team, it seems people, there's a strong focus on making sure that the product isn't built around people wanting to make money, which, you know, people can think different ways about that. But if that's the case, you know, highlighting it, I don't know. I think like we need to have sort of come to an agreement of what we think the role of ResearchCoin is in all of this, because it seems like the team has a strong aversion to putting ResearchCoin at the forefront.
Yeah, there is definitely something here. So I think some of the good stuff, like Nathan definitely makes a good point that we need a value proposition, and maybe like earning money via ResearchCoin might seem a little gimmicky. So we have to be very careful when how we approach it. However, there are various things you can do on the site, like peer reviews. We support open science, publishing. There's a bunch of stuff we can leverage here, and maybe that should go into the value prop. And we had various discussions in the past about like what is ResearchHub mission, etc. And like it's not distilled into one sentence, but I definitely think we can do something here, and there is room for it in the homepage. But I also hear you, Edwin, when you say let's be a little careful when you showcase like focus too much on like ResearchCoin, just like for example.
That's not my argument, actually. That's not my argument. I actually think we should focus more on ResearchCoin, but I'm saying that the team has had an aversion to that.
I see. The team like us. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
No, I guess you're right that we have a bit of a an aversion to it because we feel uncomfortable because the people around us in the realm of science, it's kind of weird. It comes down from this notion that it's weird to earn money and do science. It shouldn't.
It's confusing to me, to be honest. I don't get it, but
it's kind of like science is this almost like in a pursuit of truth, and it almost like adds a little bit of a conflict of interest. I'm not saying that that's what I think, but that is I think like a little bit of weird dance around science. Okay. So yes, Nathan, was there anything else you wanted to add, I guess, before we
Yeah, just two super quick points, and I really want to make sure Tyler gets a chance. I guess what I put in the chat there is just, I'm not saying, I think there's a misunderstanding. No one's saying that on the homepage it should be buy ResearchCoin so that you get rich. That's definitely not the case. What I'm saying is it is core to the product, because otherwise we're building a non-crypto product. This is a crypto product. It wouldn't make sense for this team to not make a crypto product, if that makes sense, unless, you know, Brian wants to pivot away from crypto on this one. And so I thought I'd just read out, you know, what they say about Vita Token on their homepage. It's a central component of Vita DAO ecosystem. It grants its holders rights to participate in decision making within the DAO, and then it talks about the projects they funded, etc. So we are a funding body, and the token gives you rights to influence the decisions of the funding decisions that are made. Very, very clear. is my question to you, I think, Kobe, is do you get the sense that the mission at the moment isn't clear because you are there's nothing wrong with the startup pivoting, but is it that you are pivoting to see what gets traction at the moment? You aren't quite clear what direction you should be going in.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I would say that we're not necessarily pivoting. I guess pivoting is one way to put it, but we're kind of like going after the areas where we have the most signals. So we have the most signals that the reputation on the site needs significant improvement. Like for example, like Patrick Joyce is the top reputation person, and maybe sorry, I'm getting an incoming call. Okay, I'm back. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So long story short, we have a lot of signals and we're going to go after them. We're not going to pivot into something else. Now, when it comes to the mission is, I think, is a bit, it's not distilled into one easy sentence like VitaDAO. And I think the reason why is because we're trying a lot of different things. And we're trying to almost create like a platform that really disrupts science from various angles. And it becomes like a difficult way to distill it into an easy to explain one-liner elevator pitch type thing. So yeah, I just wanted to throw my thoughts here. And but I definitely hear what you guys are all saying. And yeah, there is a lot of value here. By the way, I'm getting a lot out of this conversation, and I'm going to go back to the drawing board and take this all into account, and hopefully be able to show you something nice next week. Sorry, Nathan, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, sorry, a really, really quick follow-up to what you said, which is that I do agree with what you're saying and that the mission is clear, but you're trying different things. But I agree with you that the UI is influencing the signals that you're getting. So it's not clear at the moment when you go onto the site that there is this bounty feature. It's not clear that there's this peer review feature. So the signals are getting distorted. Like the data that you're getting, you're not really giving those other features a chance because it's still ResearchGate. Crypto does ResearchGate when you enter the site. And so that is going to dominate the usage of the site. Sorry, Tyler, please do add in your thought.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Is the mic working? Can you hear me? I think it was off earlier.
Yeah.
It's good. Okay. So a couple of points too, if you don't mind. Number one is I haven't had the time to do a full deep dive. I was actually away on vacation when I found the project and just reached out to you guys right away. So this is a very cursory overview. But looking at the homepage, I did have the same kind of comments that it wasn't clear what was different about it from ResearchGate. And then it mostly seemed to be a repository of scholarly papers. And then I had to kind of dig a little deeper to find out what is actually going on. And so I do think the redesign could be very helpful. And I think specifically a 1 to 3 minute video about exactly what you guys have been talking about what is unique. Like, why do we need to do this on chain? How is it different from, the typical way of doing things? And I think that comes back to the value proposition, which is that when you do things on chain like this, you can cut out the middleman. And if you cut out the middleman, you increase the efficiency of, all of the effort that goes into this ecosystem. And specifically, I think one of the biggest things that really could help this project propel forward is that if it becomes this sort of decentralized publication. So like, kind of like a big, not like Elsevier, but something a little smaller to start with. But the way and it's kind of a broader picture, but I do think that's the most powerful one. Like in all the people I talk to in science, that's the biggest issue, right? It's that academics put all this effort into their publications. They act as reviewers, they act as editors, they pay these fees, and then the money goes away, right? It's like $1 billion goes to Elsevier in profit every year. But that's money that could be recycled back to the user. So just as a broad topic of like where I think the biggest value could be, it's, in my opinion, it's probably over in that domain. But that being said, I understand that's a very far ways away. And so for the basic kind of product here, I think exactly what you guys are saying about building the use case. Like, why do we need the research coin? What is the research coin? Why should people even trust crypto? Because a lot of people in academics either don't trust crypto, don't know what it is, think it's a scam. So I think a couple quick informational videos, and especially on the homepage, I did really like the idea of a couple different buttons that you can click. So for example, earn research coin, explore publications, publish, discuss. Just a couple things to kind of highlight quick little ideas of what you could do on the platform.
I like
Yeah,
that.
thank you, Tyler. That's very helpful.
Yeah, and I actually have a couple of friends who I'm going to be introducing to the platform this week, so about 2 to 4 people. And so I'm going to ask them all the questions that you guys have been bringing up about what's difficult as a new user, like what's preventing them from staying on the platform, and then what do they want to see. So hopefully I'll get some good feedback by next week.
I
Yeah,
think it's really interesting that on a cursory glance of the site, Tyler, as in on your first experience, that you see it as this competitor to, you know, Elsevier and the traditional publishers, because that's what my view would be as well. No, having used the site for a while, but I can also see that, you know, the site could get loads of traction for the bounty feature. I mean, anyone who's a fan of the All In podcast knows that Friedberg was talking about something like that about the Alzheimer's issue just last week, and you know, there's a lot of incentive for someone to come up with a true proposition for that. So, but then we would need a whole new UI for that, because currently that's not really getting the credit it deserves on the site, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, Kobe, I'm curious. What do you think the point? Like, what do you think the value proposition of ResearchCoin is?
Yeah. I'm going to refrain from adding like I guess there is my opinion and there is the opinion of the greater team, because the two are differ. My main interest in product is really to design a good product. When it comes to tokenomics, I will be the first one to say that I don't have the best ideas. So what I will say, I'll give you like a really generic, like dodging the answer kind of answer of like, I think Research Coin, the way I see it, from in my view, my personal view is that I see Research Coin as a token for a scientific ecosystem right now that aims to reward good science, good behavior in science. And what good behavior? That's difficult. We're not going to define that right now, but aims to credit certain things like peer review, etc. And maybe in the future it can be used as a token instead of US dollar to replace certain things in the ecosystem of science. Now, that is what I view Research Coin as. Now, what Patrick Joyce and the rest of the team view might be a little different. I think more experiments are needed. But yeah, hopefully that doesn't like scare you away or anything like that. And what I will say is that I'm very critical of our product, but I want you guys to know that it's not coming from a place of I don't believe in it. It's I actually really believe in it. We're gonna build something really awesome. It's just gonna be about like a year before it's like fully there. Well, like it's always gonna be a work in progress, but until we achieve like the major milestones we want to, including really distilling the value of Research Coin, that's going to be about a year away. Because if you think about it, Edwin, what is the value of a lot of these tokens? There is so many tokens out there, and I think they all like I get really frustrated when I go to all these homepages for all these crypto projects, and I get very confused about what is it that they actually try to do. VitaDAO is one of the few that really is able to convey it in one sentence really easily. But I think I'm not gonna shy away from telling you that we're still experimenting and not super sure where Research Coin is gonna go. It's an experiment.
Yeah, I think by the way, I echo everybody's kind of, in my opinion, the only thing that makes this, I think, different than like a cookie cutter open access type of project is it has some kind of crypto component. So we can layer in things like, uploading things to IPFS. We can kind of mint like NFTs or subtokens to do crowdfunding, or we can do, SBTs as a kind of, publication token badge, whatever. Those are all cool things that we can do. I don't mind the reward token design for Research Coin, but I think one thing that I think is very important to always keep in mind is it's easy to just reward somebody and distribute and emit the token. So you'll have an emission of that token, but equally important, you need to make sure that there's a compelling reason to purchase the token. Because if you just give out a token and emit it, some of it gets retained, and then the other some of it gets sold. And if there's not enough buys to outweigh the sold, then you get like this ever depreciating token, which is something like, for example, like Uniswap. Uni token is just an ever depreciating token because its only value prop is governance. And to be frank, Vita token is pretty much like that as well, where there's no real yield that comes out of it. There's no you have a claim on an IP, but you don't have the rights of that IP really. You just can direct like funding and so not to take a jab at VitaDAO, but I think this is our opportunity to make the token not just be just a governance token. And I think like if we want to build it as a rewards token, then we need to make sure that we very deliberately incorporate it into the functions on the platform, which is why I really like the bounty feature, because if you want to use the bounty feature, you're going to need to buy research coin to use it. And what does the bounty feature get you? It gets you kind of more premium answers to something. It gets you more highlighted on the front page so someone can see it better so they can answer it quicker. And there's a nice tokenomic component integrated in that, which is there's a little fee that goes along with it. And that fee helps sync some of the research coin into the DAO or the ink, ResearchHub ink. And those are actual tokenomic methods where you reduce the velocity of the token, and some of it funnels back into kind of the hands. And then you can do a burn mechanism. Edwin mentioned this one to me. You can either do a burn mechanism, or you can kind of keep it in your treasury, help bolster the treasury. So more things, in my opinion, like that bounty feature, and more designed, like where you have the features and you layer on the tokenomic ideas like the bounty feature.
And I think we really need to explore grants as well. So
pre-registrations and grants definitely, like I know Patrick has talked about quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think that's where research coin, like for example, like another thing, Jeff, I think it was your idea perhaps where you mentioned that once we get into to funding and grants, then maybe holding research coin can buy you some decision making into what projects get funded. And that is very powerful concept too. And that is why I always consider research coin as an experiment. And we have a lot of compelling, interesting things we're going to be doing. So that's one of the few that really excite me.
I think that we have loads of great ideas, and we've talked about these great ideas, and you've even built the infrastructure for some of these great ideas. But I think you're going to keep coming into this issue, which is that you're never going to see the data and the traction for the things that could work with the site set up as it is at the moment. And I wonder whether there's a way in which you can test each feature against each other in a way that the UI is clearly understandable for that feature, and you can get a clear signal without having to invest too much time and resources to building a brand new site for each feature, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point, Nathan, and I completely agree with you, like 100%. And I think the best thing we can do right now is really, like, one, use our intuition, and two, use our intuition and data. Obviously, data is always there, and it helps guide the intuition. We test, we look at the database, we look at how people are doing things, and then we feel, a bit stronger opinion-wise about certain things. And the next thing we're going to do is show it to you, you guys here, and collect some feedback and show you the layout before we implement it, and see if it makes sense to you. See if you're able to understand what we're trying to do, and also show it to a few new people. See if they get it, and then we build it.
Just a very, very quick example for the bounties feature. I created 3 bounties this week, and but I'm unable to actually find those bounties. Like,
Right, you
even
can't
though I
find them.
created them myself, I have to go via my profile to look at what my previous activity were to actually find my own bounties.
Yeah, absolutely. The discoverability. By the way, what sparked this whole thing was just to throw the reason why this whole thing got started is because we are in a weird position where we have a lot of good content, but it's hidden behind a layer of content. So we have like really good discussions, bounties, questions, etc., but they're all behind papers and stuff like that, and it's hard to find them. The content discovery is not very good at the moment. And then we thought, hey, how can we improve content discovery? And that led to a whole reshifting and rethinking of the product. So yes, we will do it in such a way where bounties will be able to be found, and we'll make sure that bounties are able to be found before we even like tackle this whole greater product thing. Just FYI.
Okay.
Tyler?
Yeah, it's a little tangential to the conversation now, but relating back to what I was talking about on-chain publishing, one of the reasons why I was thinking about that could be useful is another use case for the RSC coin. Because if you have this sort of on-chain publisher and you have the traditional reviewership of peer review and editing, one thing you could do is launch the publications as NFTs and then track their kind of interactions. So track their citations, and then if you want to allot, some research coin that people pay as a registration fee, part of that to the citation pool, you can kind of give royalties to authors based on their amount of citations. And the reason why I mention that is because then you attract not only the philanthropic people that typically donate to research, because they have some loved one who wants to do this type of research or has this ailment, but then you can give them a stake in the IP that's generated specifically just through citations. You don't even need to have a product on the market. You just say, if I produce highly cited work, you're likely to see some return in RSC. Just another like very broad view of what the token could be used for.
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. And that's actually exactly how we're thinking about NFTs at the moment. When time comes to implement them, and we've talked a lot about them, what you described is probably the approach we're going to take, more or less.
Yeah, and that's what it sounded like when I was talking to Jeff over the phone the other day too. So that was really exciting. I think that's going to be awesome.
Okay, well, we've got about a minute left. If people don't mind, we can do like a few more minutes. If people are time constrained, feel free to jump out. I know another talking point Kobe wanted to do, I don't know how important it is going to be like the reputation system, which personally I believe is the whole second arm of research. Really, to be frank, it's funding. Well, probably three arms: publishing, funding, and reputation are kind of the big ones. So I know that Ricardo was talking to, I think his name was Johnny. He was a philosophy student who they wanted to talk about doing a hackathon where they actually do like this big kind of hackathon for the reputation algo. So yeah, anyway, Kobe, take it away with whatever you were kind of thinking about that.
Yeah, and I was chatting a bit with Satpik before the call too. So the reputation system right now, if you go to like the leaderboard, you'll see Patrick Joyce at the top, and obviously, he's a great guy and all that. But in an ideal world, he should not be at the top, and he would be the first one to say it too. Like it needs to be, people at their respective like fields, and you should be able to like view like who are some of the top scientists in this and that field, and the answer should not involve how active you are on ResearchHub. It should be based on what you've done in science in your career. Now the question is, how do we achieve that? That becomes a little tricky. Like how do we build a reputation system that doesn't necessarily involve the discussions and the activity that you've done on ResearchHub, yet is able to capture the work that you've done in your career in your respective field, so that when you come to ResearchHub, we're able to quantify it and port that work over, if that makes sense, if what I'm saying like is clear enough. so that we generate a number. And I know it's a tricky thing, because then how do you quantify someone's work? How do you rate them against someone else? Do you use citations? Do you use the number H-index? Do you use the number of like published works? I don't have a clear answer. I have some intuition, but I'm love to hear some thoughts. So maybe Nathan, since you raised your hand first.
Yeah, I'm a bit unclear by this question almost, because the very fact that there's a leaderboard on the homepage, again, I think it's linked to what we were discussing before. It's almost like a bit of a mess in terms of what the mission is, because I thought that the point of the leaderboard was that we're incentivizing activity, and through activity the reputation increases, and then you get to go higher on the leaderboard. But if what we're saying is actually reputation is based on real world scientific reputation, then actually that leaderboard isn't really relevant. Like, why are we ranking who is like the best scientist? Like, or
Yeah,
whatever,
maybe
like,
it should be both.
yeah,
Maybe it should be like a little bit of what you have done before, and some of your activity on the site as well.
Okay, is that not, is that similar to what it is now?
So right now we base like your reputation is based on like our algorithm of that mainly takes into account your activity on the site, and not what you have done outside of ResearchHub. Yeah, you can claim your paper and all that, but I don't even think I actually don't think it affects your reputation at the moment. So I guess like we can start with like the basic question of like, should the work that you have done outside of ResearchHub, like, well, I guess like let's take one step further. Like, scientific reputation is well, I guess I'm not a scientist, so I can't really speak too much of it. I can say what I know, which is scientists work really hard to create like a reputation, and they will try and maintain it at all costs, because the reputation that they accrue really unlocks a lot of doors for them. So it is important, but right now the reputation system is a bit skewed, and we want to create a reputation system that is based on actual contributions to science. And I know this is all like a bit iffy of like what is the actual contribution and all that, but maybe it's a starting point. So I know we're getting into like a whole general conversation here. So maybe yes, I'll pause for a second, and Edwin, maybe you can say whatever you want to, and we can maybe refine it a little more.
Yeah, I think one thing would be good. First, well, do we think it'll help to actually make the parameters of the reputation system more explicit?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's one thing. Another thing that I could imagine working, first of all, the citation thing is tricky, right? Because we want to get away from how citations are currently done. So we don't want to reinforce that. But having people bring their publications onto the site could be something that adds to their reputation, as well as just having people on the site potentially like vote for them, or give them some sort of vote of confidence or something, as something that could also contribute to their reputation. And it could be a vote of confidence in multiple domains. It doesn't have to be just like, I vote this person is competent. It could be depending on this person is really good at doing these kind of bounties, that sort of thing. So I'm not sure exactly, but I think it should be more user, like based on the users on the site, what they think of someone, than just sort of taking real world information and putting it on the site and then having a high reputation as a result of that.
That's very interesting. Yeah. I wonder what other people here have to say about this topic and what Edwin said.
I think like one thing Edwin said that I do like is if they do port in their own publications, then it's almost like them doing the hard work of verifying, like they're putting up to say, hey, these are my 10 publications, and then we just need to, I don't know if we could just kind of go through like ORCID and see if yeah, these 10 publications belong to this user. Yeah, no problem. I think there is OpSci has a a product, and I've not looked into it to be honest, but it's actually exactly this. It's kind of porting over like real world Web 2 kind of scientific things, and how that plays into your reputation, decentralized identity. And I think it is important. I mean, you can imagine some kind of top-notch tenured PI coming onto the platform and having a reputation of 100, even though they have 200 publications and they've been a professor for a decade. And we want to make sure to accurately represent them. And so I guess like Edwin, what you're saying is like you let the community of ResearchHub curate where those people's reputation stands by giving them votes of confidence. So that could be like, I guess like the more you can decentralize the operations of something like that, kind of the more likely it is to work out, instead of it all funneling to like the core team to do something, or like have an ML filter that's like 80% success rate, try to like do a reputation score for somebody. So I guess what I'm saying is I think we do need to import real world things, but after importing real world things, then maybe the community or like the editors or something like that can do a good job of curating it.
Yeah, I agree. As long as we don't focus on citations, since that's something we're really trying to get away from.
Reproducibility. I wish there was like real papers had reproducibility scores. That's something we can implement going forward. Obviously, at ResearchHub is we have a reproducibility score, and then your reputation is built off of how well that product or project was reproduced. But the problem is there's no metadata in a like just a file, or like through OpenAlex or something like that, where we'd be able to see how reproducible it was. So it'll be hard to use that as a metric for published things already, but going forward, of course, we can.
And I think even having that being something that's going forward would be very valuable, because everybody's really aware of the problem of reproducibility in science right now. So just having that as something we're working on, I think would be really appreciated by a lot of academics.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I know we're kind of like a bit over time. I just want to throw like one final idea at you. It wasn't my idea; it was Patrick Joyce's idea, but maybe it's tied to the reputation and also publishing. So one of the ideas he had is that rather than one way we can disrupt like some of the big journals is by basically allowing people to upload their preprints, like peer-reviewed preprints to the site, and that will be like, maybe imagine like a paper page, and you can have like one version that's like paywalled because of a particular journal, but there is also, you can read the peer-reviewed version. You can read it, and that can be sufficient for a lot of different purposes. In addition, and I was thinking that maybe that can also improve a person's reputation. So imagine if you're willing to do that, that can earn you certain number of points. And yeah, I'm just curious to hear what if this is like even like a idea worth like exploring, or are there like obvious flaws with it?
I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm at an academic institute. I feel like I don't feel the pain of paywalls, maybe as other people would, and so I don't know if I would be like a good person to answer this. If the paywalls is I think a much bigger issue than it is, I think, to academics, then it could be some benefit. I don't see it too high priority or like a high compelling thing.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, cool. Anyone else?
I mean, controversial. This might be controversial take, but I don't know if reputation is actually the biggest issue for the site at the moment, because I feel like a lot of reputation comes from Googling someone's name and seeing what you can find. And actually, on Twitter, someone will put their credentials in their bio, and on ResearchHub you would do the same. So your reputation comes from your institution, it comes from your publications, it comes from all these things. And what are we adding on top of it other than activity on the site? In terms of publishing your preprints, again, it is the purpose of reputation to incentivize good behavior, or are we using reputation as a barrier for non-educated users on whatever topic we're looking at to understand who are the main voices in this area? I think we have to distinguish between those two uses of reputation.
It's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a good point. That is a good point. Yeah, I don't have personally, I don't have a clear, like, super strong opinion about the reputation. I have a lot of strong opinions about other parts of the site, but I think it's all of you guys made really good points, and yeah, we'll chat about them with the internal team a bit more in the next week about the reputation feedback you just shared, and like prioritize. Like definitely, there's like a bunch of glaring issues with the site, so we'll go after them. We'll make sure, Nathan, you can find your bounties, and reputation maybe will be like something we tackle a bit later. Okay, so I'll stop here. Yeah, thanks a lot for the feedback. And I know we're over time, so thank you for staying on for 13 additional minutes.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Kobe. I think this has been like pretty helpful for everybody. Even just getting a little bit of insight onto also where ResearchHub team is kind of thinking on the direction and where the priorities and stuff lie. I think we can probably stop it here. I think the only other topic that we had was we have a lot of obviously new users who are flowing in, like Tyler and many others who are interested in being involved. And we got a lot of exposure, I think, through the Lex Friedman podcast. So there's a lot of what I found to be developers that are interested. Also, Kobe, I shot you over. There's a few more Discord DMs of people who want to join.
I'll check those out.
Yeah, take a look. So it will really be how can we have all these people who are interested. They all have years of experience doing development or something with crypto. How can we best leverage those people to get involved? And I think it would be better to make sure that we can distribute like kind of the bandwidth of everybody as much as possible so we can get more things done and reduce burden on a small group of people. So just worth mulling over, I think, until next week and see best where we can plug people in.
Can I just say one last thing, Jeffrey?
Yeah, of course.
I just want to say to Kobe, like I really appreciate the discussion that you're having, and I understand that it can't be easy when you've put so much time into developing these products, getting the criticism like you have over the last hour. So I just wanted to say some positive things, which is that honestly, every time we've proposed a feature, the way that it's come out has been actually fantastic and really reflected what even something like the peer review feature or the bounty feature. I've noticed things that we discussed on the calls being added to it in a really like sort of way that's true to what we were intending with it. And so I'm sure that actually in the long-term vision, all this time will be really well spent and prove very productive.
And I think the site is actually quite nice for first version of it. So
well, thanks guys. Yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I actually really love critical feedback because sometimes we build things, but you'll be surprised a lot of the things we build are kind of like annoy us, and that's when we know there is a real problem. When we build something and it's like, oh, like the first version of the peer review, I built it and I was like, oh, that really sucked. Gotta change that. So I really appreciate your feedback, and please keep it coming. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Kobe, for everything, and please extend that out to the rest of the team too. We see all the GitHub updates on the Discord of everybody putting in a lot of work on there. So yeah, please do extend that out to to everybody else. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yep.
Bye.
Yeah, it was great to meet everyone. Thanks again.
Yep.
Talk to you.
Nice meeting you, Tyler.
Yeah.
Bye,
likewise.
everybody.
Thanks for